So welcome back to another episode, and today I thought I'd take a look at the Polymega because I've had it for the last 6 months. I picked it up, I had to wait around 2.5 years to finally get it. I got it 6 months ago. I've been playing it quite a lot, and I wanted to talk about a lot of the ups and downs with the system. And I'll ask you guys, were you interested in the Polymega when it was introduced? Was it something that you wanted to pick up? Or were you like, no, not my type of thing, I'll let it go? Let me know down below. So yes, I had to wait a long time for this thing to show up right here. And what is the Polymega? It's a system that you can play a lot of your old games on. And I have a lot of old games here, and I really want to play these games sometimes on a modern console where I don't have to hook up a FrameMeister and all that. I'm telling you, I am not Corey and Trey from My Life in Gaming, and I'm certainly not Joe from GameStack with the technical upgrading and enhancing of graphics to modern TVs using all these FrameMeisters and stuff like that. I do have a FrameMeister, but you know what? I always had a hard time with it, and it was a bit confusing for me because I'm old, and I like quick plug and play things. And that's what the Polymega was for me. So we got to talk about all of the games that will play on the Polymega. So you can use the original PlayStation games, Japanese PlayStation games, Genesis games, Mega Drive games, Sega CD games, Mega CD games, Sega Saturn, Japanese Sega Saturn, Neo Geo CD, Neo Geo CD Japan, TurboGrafx 16 cards, TurboGrafx CDs, the PC Engine cards, the PC Engine CD, Super Graphics, never mind arcade cards, and Super CD-ROMs play as well.
Alright!
So you can take any game from those old systems and put it into the Polymega. But there's a few things we gotta talk about. So the CDs all go in right here. So no matter what CD system it's for, from Neo Geo CD to Sega Saturn to PlayStation, they all go in right here. Now here's the interesting thing. For all those old cartridges, how do you put them in this thing? How do you get them in here? Right now, here is the PC Engine TurboGrafx module. This is a module. Watch this. Right here's the button. You click it, you pull it off right here. And you can buy other modules for this as well. So you can buy the N64 version, you can buy the Sega Genesis Mega Drive version, and these are the only two modules I have. I want to get an N64 one. I'll do that all in the future. But here's the Mega Drive Genesis one. Slides right in here, just like that, and then you can put your carts in right there. Now the system comes with a default controller, which I will talk about in a second because there's a lot I want to talk about with this default controller. For the most part, it's pretty good, but I'll save the review for a second. All the modules also come with their own system controllers, and that's also a really great thing. But the cool thing is, taking out the module, slipping back in the PC Engine right here, I can hook up all of the old controllers from those old systems right here. So they actually have the old inputs, so you can plug in your old controllers. Now the one thing I want to say is, you'll start putting in your games and you're really excited. You're like, oh my god, I can get all of my old games on this system and play them on my high-def TV through HDMI. That's the big selling point, was for me. But the one thing I want to say is, definitely pick up a bigger memory card. I filled this thing up in, I think, maybe about an hour and a half with all my games that I had, and I'm like, no. So I upgraded the memory, so now I can put a lot more games in. I'm a lot happier. But know that to upgrade the memory card, huge game changer. Like, I mean, at first I was like, oh my god, I can't put any more games in? Are you kidding me? Then I'm like, read online, okay, I can upgrade the memory. But here's another point, and me and my friends have been talking about this. You can't take that memory card out and put it in another Polymega. So you can't copy your games and give them to a friend and say, here's all my collection, you can play them too on your Polymega. You can't, because every single system has its own serial that's tied to that particular system and memory card. So you can't trade off. And that's something that kind of bums me out quite a bit, because I have quite a few games that I would love to give to my friends, but I definitely understand as well. So how is it installing games in this thing? And I've installed hundreds of games in this thing, hundreds. Okay, let's start off with my main folly here of the system. It's really cool that you can take out these modules just like this fast. Put in a Mega Drive one, just like so. That's how fast it is. And then you can put in your carts right here. I will say this much. When you put the card in, especially for the Mega Drive Genesis, it's kind of hard to fit it right. I have a hard time kind of lining it up and putting it in correctly. And then when it does go in, I'm like, is it in right? I'm like, yeah, it's in right. I still, to this day, I've been doing it for 6 months, putting new carts in, and I'm doing it all the time. I'm like, oh, I still have a hard time with that. But on the flip side, when you do get your card in, it copies instantly. So you put in a cart, instantaneous copying to the system. So yes, you're dumping the ROM onto the console. That's what this console realistically is. But cards are almost instantaneous. You put it in, you press the install, it's done. But what about for CD games? Yes, games that are sometimes like 700 megs, you put them in, they can take maybe like 10 minutes plus. So it's a bit of a commitment. I've been sitting on the floor sometimes just copying games. I was doing that for the first couple of months, just getting my game collection in, all the games that I really wanted, right? All the games that I want all my TurboGrafx games and PC Engine games on there. I dumped a lot of them onto here. But you have to sit and wait for each one for 10 minutes for the CD-ROM stuff. It depends on how big the games are, but for the most part, they're between 600 to 700. But also the good news is it installs in the background. So you can put a game in and be installing it and go and play a game. So that's the thing that I really, really do appreciate, that I can be dumping games and playing other games. I should say though, I put a few disc-based games in here that would just freeze. They would play for a little bit and then they would just freeze. And that was for G Darius, a favorite game of mine, a side view shooting game. And I just wanted to hear this great Zentata music and got to a certain section and it just glitched. Okay, so does every single game work? No. I would say, if I was to do an average, probably 95% of the games I put in work. But I've had oddities, like Splatterhouse here. And I've cleaned it, right? I've cleaned it to put it in to the PC Engine side of things, and it just gave me a white screen. It just never installed. The one that I was really bummed at is an old childhood classic for me, from my childhood, from the early 90s, and that is for Budokan. Right here, great, well, I shouldn't say great, it's a game from a different time, kind of a martial arts game. I just loved it because I got it as a kid. I was so excited about playing this and on a high-def TV again from my original cart. And I put it in, and what happened? Nothing. It wouldn't install. It just gave me a white screen as well. And let me tell you something. I got a Q-tip and I cleaned the heck out of this thing thinking maybe it's just dirt. Maybe it's just dirt. And then I put it in again. It just doesn't like this game. I don't know why. It doesn't like it. I've updated the system. That's something else you can do. Update your system. System's fully updated. So I really don't know what's going on there. Another game that I really wanted to play is Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. Another kind of classic from that old Genesis time. Put it in, no go. And I've had a few other PC Engine games that have had the same thing. For the most part, all my CD games really install. There's been a few, like there's a great example of a Underground disc from my PlayStation era. It was like a kind of one of those ones that you get as like a demoed kind of disc. I put that in and it just kind of puts it into unknown mode. It puts it in the extended set, but it didn't know how to recognize it, which kind of makes sense. They don't have every single demo in there for the Underground series, I get that. But it was really cool to play Final Fantasy the demo and hear the different music again in the battle. So as I said, the menu system in this is very good. You actually have save states. You can do multiple save states, which is very, very handy. Finding your games is so easy. Just going back and forth through your systems and going, okay, I'll click on the Neo Geo CD. That's where all of my games are. And it organizes them very, very well. And it has all of the covers for the games. And if you can't find the cover for your game, you can go through an archive of all of the old covers and find your particular game. So that's a bit for the system itself. How is the built-in controller? Yes, you can get the other controllers for the system with their particular modules, but how is the built-in analog controller right here? Because you'll be using this for most games. A lot of times you don't want to switch out another controller. I definitely understand that. For the most part, I've used this one probably around 80% of the time. How is it? I like it. I do like it. I have some nitpicks that are kind of strange, and I really kind of noticed it with Street Fighter in particular. I want to say for nearly every other game I played, I thought this controller was pretty damn good. But when I was playing the old Alpha series, and I want to say something, I probably played Street Fighter Alpha, the PlayStation 1 version on the original PlayStation. Oh God, like I played it for years, every day religiously. Me and Rob played it all of the time. I want to say that when I go to do a fireball on this, it just doesn't feel right. And it just doesn't feel good. Sometimes I just can't pull it off, and I'm like, there's no way it's me. There's no way. I took myself out of the equation, and I just think that the controller's a little bit overly like harder to do certain moves on, especially for like a game like Street Fighter. But overall, for action games and things like this, I have not had a single problem with this controller. And another thing we got to talk about with the games, no lag. I love it. I have a whole bunch of old emulating, devices to play games and with varying degrees. I want to say I played all of these games and they've all felt really, really good that way. My only other nitpick, and it's a very small nitpick with the controller, is when I press the power button, it just takes a second for it to turn on. And that's a small nitpick. It's like not a big deal. I just feel I have to wait an extra second. And sometimes in the world of gaming, these kind of things bother us, especially when I'm going to do it all of the time. It's one of those things that became a little bit of a nitpick, but I'm telling you, it's not a deal breaker. So here's where I get in depth about the entire experience. For me being a collector, for me having a show on YouTube, and for me who just likes playing video games in general, how is the system? It's great. For me, having a show, it's phenomenal because I can go and collect for some old systems and put them in here, and I can capture the footage and show you guys like I've been doing throughout this entire episode. This thing makes it so handy to do, and I really, really appreciate that. I also appreciate the fact that I become a bit of a collector again. And how I mean is that as we keep going from generation to generation, for me, some of these consoles are like 27, 30 plus years old, longer. And it's harder and harder to put them on televisions and all that stuff, as I said. It's an expensive thing to do as well. And this makes it a lot easier, meaning that now I can go and I started to collect for the Neo Geo. Yeah, of course I like my cartridges for the Neo Geo, but I always wanted to collect for the Neo Geo CD-ROM, and I can do that now. Not only can I play the games and show them on the channel, but I can just play them in general on this console. Like just go click the game and I'm playing on the TV. And I really enjoy the plug and play of that. But it's fun being a collector, going out and getting some of these original games. And I've had a lot of fun with them. And just, picking up games off my shelf that I've had for, oh my God, nearly 20 plus years. Like Street Fighter the movie, it's not a great game, but I can play it again. And it's the ease of playing. And just opening up the old games and looking at the artwork in there. And I just kind of enjoying the old systems again with the original games.
You win!
Another thing I really like as well is having original Japanese games like Grandia on the Sega Saturn with the better frame rates. This was the ideal way to play it back in the day. The old Final Fantasy VII killer, as they called it. It's nice to be able to get copies of the game in English, like so, and play them on the Polymega. Now, I have to say something. Not every single copied game out there with English works on this machine. So know that going in. Don't buy a game that's like $50, a repo or something like that, and put it in expecting for it to work. I just happen to have these games and they worked for me. But I mean, that's the other thing. Use at your own discretion because you just don't know that sometimes if some of these games will work. And I've had a lot of burned PC Engine games that definitely do work on this machine as well. So buyer beware in that respect. Now, I know for a lot of you out there that use a lot of different kind of emulation devices and stuff like that, like, you know, the Mister and all that, I totally understand if you're appalled by this machine. I get it. I totally get it. But for me, in my simplicity, I really enjoy this machine for the show, for myself, as a player of video games, as a collector of video games. This has been a lot of fun, and I've really enjoyed this over the last 6 months, and I've used it a lot, and it's great to just go and play a game, sometimes, you know, for 10 minutes, sometimes for 3 hours, and just to have your own collection and build it up the way that you want on your personal system, the way that you want it, and getting different modules, like there's an N64 module you can get as well. There's a lot of ways to upgrade this machine the way you see fit. For me, I just needed the PC Engine and the Sega Genesis Mega Drive modules to begin with. They've really suited me well. It's really fun just to have a friend come over, bring you an old cart, you put it in, and it's your game instantaneously. And you can go off and play it on your high definition TV with a kind of a modern day controller, or your original controllers that we all love so much as well. I will ask you guys, what do you think of the Polymega? Has it been something on your horizon? Is it something you said, absolutely not, that's not my type of thing, I will stick with emulation, I'm sticking with that world? Or are you curious about this machine? Let me know down below.
Victory!
I honestly have had a great time with it. Yes, not all games work. Varying degrees of games installing or not, or crashing. But for the most part, I'd say 95% up there. It's worked really, really well for me. And I have most of my games in here. All of my treasure games from my childhood are on here that I can just play at my leisure. And it really feels really good. And this has been one of the best buys I've done in years. And I really like the Duo analog as well. But overall, for a system that kind of encapsulates all of those old consoles, this works really, really well. High recommendation for me. And so I'll ask you guys again, are you interested in the Polymega? Let me know down below. So anyways, guys, until next time.